The dating game. Playing hard to get attracts narcissists. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. There are thousands of books and podcasts that have been created telling you how to find the man or woman of your dreams, how to meet with success in the dating game, how to attract people to you so that you find love. Some of these books contain sensible observations, but many are predicated on sheer nonsense, sometimes an outdated mindset in relation to the way that people interact with one another. In other instances, they often contain the narcissistic mindset, although people don't realize this, with regard to how people are pursued. I am working on creating a book which helps people navigate their way through the dating game so as to ensure that they aren't ensnared by narcissists. It's just more than looking out for the red flags, but it's a book that contains the practical alongside the theoretical with regard to how you can avoid being ensnared by the predators that operate within this area and ultimately find yourself with someone that will provide you with a genuine, meaningful, long-lasting relationship. One aspect of the dating game, which is commonly advocated by certain individuals, is the concept of playing hard to get. The idea of ensuring that you don't show that you're too enthusiastic or that you show really any enthusiasm in relation to the date that you have been involved with. The typical scenario would go something like this. You've arranged a date. It might be that it's something that's been fixed up by friends or is more common these days, utilizing online dating, albeit I repeatedly explain to people they ought not to. If you want to know why, watch my video, Why You Should Not Use Online Dating. But you've had a date and it went well. Thereafter, the suggestion is that rather than appear keen to have a second date, that what you ought to do is to back off a little, to remain silent when that person perhaps follows up, in order to engage their interest. By making yourself somewhat unobtainable, the idea is that the other person will be motivated to a greater extent to want to pursue you because you're proving hard to get. You're proving slightly out of reach. This concept is usually utilized and suggested in relation to how a woman should respond when dating a man, that she should fall silent, not respond to his telephone calls or text messages, so that it conveys an air of mystery, that it makes her seem like she is a challenge, that the man prefers to have that challenge, so that he will work harder to then try and establish a second date and thereafter a relationship with this individual. That the man is biologically programmed to want to have this challenge in relation to the person that he pursues. That for women, if you respond too soon and too enthusiastically, the man will see you as essentially far too interested, far too early, with the consequence that he will actually lose interest in you. I have seen various publications advocate this approach to dating, that you should play hard to get. It's not only the case that this is advocated in the male pursuing a female dynamic, but I've also seen it in relation to suggesting to men that they do that also. that in order to cultivate the interest of the woman, they don't follow up with a text, that if the woman happens to contact them, they don't reply immediately. Doing so, again, is designed to cause that person to try harder and think, I need to do more to get their interest. And that way, you ultimately end up weeding out those who wouldn't be appropriate for you because they're not that interested in you. At first blush, this appears to hold some merit. After all, if someone fades away fairly quickly because you've not got in touch with them, were they that interested to begin with? Moreover, if somebody, despite your silence, continues to want to engage with you, that's a good thing, isn't it? It shows that they're keen. It shows that they're interested. It shows that they want you. Unfortunately, adopting this approach is more likely to cause you to get rid of people who are not narcissists and end up being pursued by narcissists. Here's why. Let us assume you've been on that first date, and thereafter the other person sends a perfectly pleasant text message saying, I really enjoyed that. I'd like to see you again. You don't reply. You decide to follow the advice of these supposed dating gurus, these dating coaches, and think, I won't reply to that, so it doesn't make me look too keen, and the person will try harder. The person waits, maybe a few hours, maybe a day, and then writes, just following up on my earlier message. I haven't had a reply, just wondered if you'd like to meet up again. They're demonstrating, of course, that they're interested, and they are politely pursuing. You decide not to respond again. Chances are at this point, a non-narcissist will simply give up. They will either regard you as rude for not having had the courtesy to reply to the text message, decide that you are messing them around and that they are not worth being treated that way, or simply decide, well, maybe they weren't interested at all, at least I now know, away I'll go. Thus, somebody who may actually have been a decent proposition for you, a good match for you, someone that has all the fundamental traits that make for a successful and healthy relationship, walks away. They walk away because you decided that you were going to adopt the approach of, I'm going to play hard to get, let's test their mettle. You might think, well, if they drifted away after just 2 text messages not being replied, were they really that interested? The short answer is, yes, they are. And most people would expect the courtesy of a reply to their message, and that they are not going to continue to ask you to reply because they've done so twice and you haven't bothered to respond. They will regard that as rude. They will regard it as a clear sign that you are not interested, and therefore they will walk away. It will not encourage them to pursue further. Thus, you run the risk by adopting that approach of losing someone who might actually have proven to be a good match for you, simply as a consequence of utilizing the ridiculous approach of playing hard to get. Instead, if they asked you for a second date, and you, of course, were interested, and you respond as such, that individual will make the arrangements and then leave you be, and then you meet up. That is indicative of a healthy approach. The individual is recognizing boundaries. They're not pestering you repeatedly with messages. They have other things going on in their life. Therefore, you, as a recent addition into their life, won't rank as high. Most people will have various commitments in their life. For instance, they'll have a job, they'll have a home to run, they'll have hobbies that they're interested in, they'll have friends, they'll have family. They might, dependent on age and circumstance, have children also. Thus, when you come along, you may well rank sort of 7th or 8th in their priorities, which means that they will, of course, reply to your message, but then they've got other things to attend to. Thus, they're not pinging texts to you repeatedly throughout the course of the day because 1, they recognize boundaries, 2, they don't operate with a sense of entitlement, 3, they're accountable for their behavior, and 4, they actually have other things in their lives that are more important than you. Therefore, they're focused on those things rather than keep messaging and ringing you. That is a healthy indicator. Thus, thereafter, you go on that third date. And there's been a couple of text messages in between, first of all, to sort out the arrangements, and then just to confirm on the day that you'll meet up. All of that is entirely commensurate with the stage at which the relationship is. But so many dating coaches would suggest to you that a paucity of text messages means that the other person isn't interested. Not so. Proceeding in this fashion demonstrates an individual that is focused on other factors in their life, as they should well be, and that they recognize boundaries. They're not in a rush to draw that person in. Too many people have been coached these days to think that a failure of the other person to respond time and time and time again, i.e. they're not burying you under text messages, demonstrates they're simply not interested in you. No. If you send a message and they reply, that's fair enough. They may send one message further with regard to the arrangements, but there's no need for them to keep bombarding you with texts, unless, of course, there is an ulterior motive. Thus, the suggestion that you should play hard to get not only demonstrates lack of courtesy, but is likely to lead to you missing out on an individual that will be interested in you, but will walk away as a failure of your response. But there is a particular person that is likely to respond, that is likely then to cause you to think, oh, they are really interested in me. This playing hard to get has worked. I've got their attention. It's certainly the case that the individual will be interested in you, but in actual fact, you'll come to learn that you'll wish that they never had. Because the likelihood is you are more likely to attract a narcissist this way. Now, before I go any further, there may be some of you listening who think, oh, well, I want to get my narcissist back, so if I play hard to get, that is a worthwhile endeavour. No. First of all, if you're aware that you're dealing with a narcissist, you must obey the first golden rule of freedom, which is once you know, you go. You get out, you stay out. Furthermore, this isn't the initial seduction. You, wrongly, are trying to rope a narcissist back into the relationship, perhaps post-disengagement. Different considerations apply, and playing hard to get at that juncture is not going to help you, leaving aside the fact that you shouldn't even be doing that in the first place, because this person is an identified narcissist. Therefore, what you should understand is that if you have been involved with a narcissist and you think that the most appropriate way to move forward to attract a narcissist back is to play hard to get, think again. With that stated, why is it that in the initial stages, if you play hard to get, you're more likely to end up with a narcissist than a non-narcissist? Well, as I've already explained, the non-narcissist is more likely to walk away because they'll think you're not interested. They're not going to keep plugging away as a consequence of their own boundary recognition, the fact that they will think they're not interested, so I'm not going to pester them. Their own pride. I'm not going to make a tit of myself, keep messaging someone who's not replying to me. They may be angry about it. Who do they think they are? We had a decent date and they're not replying to me. Well, they can fuck themselves. I'm not bothering with somebody like that. They've helped me out, actually. They've demonstrated what a rude bugger they are. I'm not interested in carrying on. Disappointing, but there we are. But the person that is more likely to respond as a consequence of you playing hard to get is the narcissist. This is because, having already had an interaction with that narcissist, you now belong to that narcissist. And there is a high chance that that narcissist, having already targeted you, wants the relationship to progress. This means that the narcissist will seek to ensnare you, and quite typically will do so by sending you numerous text messages. Certain dating coaches will tell you, look, the fact that you're getting a multiplicity of text messages shows just how keen they are. Well, they are right to an extent. The sender of those text messages is keen, but it is not the type of person that you'd want to be attracting. And this is where the dating coaches get it wrong, because they fail to recognize that somebody that demonstrates such a high level of interest in you is invariably going to be an individual that isn't healthy for you. That individual is invariably going to be a narcissist. You might think, well, surely if I don't respond to the narcissist when they've sent a flurry of text messages, that will wound them and they will walk away. There is force in what you're saying, but remember, this is the seduction. And therefore, you, having undoubtedly been targeted by the narcissist, are a highly tempting prospect to that narcissist. The narcissism is saying, this one shows promise, we need more. And thus, the narcissism creates the concept of infatuation to cause the narcissist to be motivated to send you those text messages, to try and assert further control over you and to arrange to see you again. You receive those messages. They're complimentary. They're flattering you. They make mention of meeting you again. You think, following the dating coach's advice, it's working. Look how keen they are. Yes, but their keenness is manufactured. They're not keen to get hold of you because of it's you. That person is likely to be a narcissist who is keen to get hold of you because you need to be controlled. Your fuel needs to be drunk. Those character traits need to be peeled away from you. Those residual benefits need to be accessed. Whilst your failure to respond will wound the narcissist, the wounding is not extensive because all you're doing is failing to respond to a text message. Furthermore, if you don't respond, for instance, when the narcissist calls you, that causes slightly more wounding, but it's not so serious as to cause the narcissist to break off. And at this juncture, because it's during the seduction, the narcissism basically works like this. This person looks so tempting, we can take some pelters en route to landing this big fish. In essence, yes, we're getting a bit of wounding here. It's a bit of turbulence, but that's okay, because we know that we want to land this prize, and it's worth a bit of aggravation in the meantime. Accordingly, whilst a non-narcissist is far more likely to walk away from you as a consequence of your failure to respond, this actually eggs on a certain type of personality, the narcissist. You threaten their control by not responding, and in such circumstances during the seduction, the narcissism says, okay, we've got a bit of a feisty one here. Let's ramp it up. Let's try even harder to bring them in. Thus the narcissist sends even more messages, rings you, perhaps sends a gift. You, not realizing that you're dealing with a narcissist, think, look at this. I'm getting bombarded with flattering, pleading texts, telephone calls, voicemail messages. Flowers have turned up. They are really into me. This playing hard to get really does work, doesn't it? And it does, in the sense that it makes a certain type of person try harder to get hold of you. But the problem is, you've attracted the wrong type of person. Because, as many of you will now know, that the narcissist will seduce you, that you will be embedded as the intimate partner primary source, and then you will get the sustained devaluation and be dragged to your own personal hell. Where the non-narcissist is far more likely to walk away when you play hard to get, the type of personality that's more likely to dial it up to 11, gird their loins and keep going, is the narcissist. This is because you are already believed to belong to the narcissist, and the narcissist wants to drink of you, to avail themselves of the prime aims. And the narcissism is perfectly okay with some minor wounding taking place as they continue to try and draw you in. It's basically seen as a hazard of the job. Yes, in order to land this person, we'll take a few pelters along the way, but that's okay. Indeed, in the mind of the narcissist, the fact that you're playing hard to get reaffirms why the narcissist ought to own you and ensnare you, that thought taking place at a subconscious level. Thus, it causes the narcissist to think, yeah, they're evidently worth pursuing. And furthermore, because it's a threat to control, the narcissist must nullify that threat to control. And the narcissist in such circumstances is always going to go to the direct assertion of control, because they're able to call you, able to text you, able perhaps to call round where you work or where you live if they know that information, because you have not blocked them. You want them to keep getting into contact with you to demonstrate how interested they are in you. Thus, that conduit is open to the narcissist as a route to hoover you. The fact is that if you abide by this nonsensical approach of playing hard to get, you're more likely to end up attracting narcissists than actually finding someone who's a non-narcissist who redoubles their efforts to get to know you. The latter group are far more likely to walk away from you. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.